So hello everyone, this is Andre again. This time I had a different setup. I actually stream from home, so I hope the Wi-Fi is going to be okay. And if you actually hear dog barking, she's just right under my table, so it's the dog, it's not me, and not my chair. Alright, today I actually have a very interesting topic planned for the Twitch session. It's Netlify Functions, and I haven't worked with Netlify yet, so it's going to be my first time working with Netlify. I'll see what I can do. I'll try to implement a Netlify function locally, and I'll see if I can actually get it deployed. Now, first of all, what I want to show you is how I changed the project that you know from my other videos, the one about the zones in Brno and cars and checking the zones and so on. So let me first start the project. I'll show you what I changed from the last time. So in the last video, I showed you how to store some data that you need in the app, how to store that in an MS SQL database using the framework. I actually used the Web API server to do that. Maybe in the future I'll actually try to switch to Node.js, as that seems to be a bit more flexible. But right now it works with the framework. And what I actually did last time, I used a local database. I used a local MS SQL, actually SQL Express. So from the last time I actually switched the SQL server to be on Azure. So I'm going to show you the Management Studio. You see that I'm actually connected to database.windows.net, so the database is running in Azure. Now I did that as a kind of a prerequisite to having a serverless functions actually handle the data. Because if I have a serverless functions and I want them to do something with the data that I have in database, I need to have that database somewhere publicly online. So that's why that was the reason why I switched to Azure. And of course, it's much easier to maintain and so on. So what you see here, that's the app. When I go to settings, you see that I added here one field called permit validity. The use case is that the person or the user actually using the system here is able to add a car, is able to define in which zones he can park the car. So these are the zones that are currently in Brno. And my car actually has a parking permit for 114. And the permit is always valid for a period of 1 year. So that's why there is a permit validity field. And what I actually aim for today is to create a function that would automatically check, let's say once a day or once a week, would check if the validity period is coming to an end. And if it does, it should send me an email saying, hey, your permit is gonna expire soon, so go ahead and order it for the next year. And then I would just change or switch the permit validity for the year 2020, and I'm fine for another year. So this is to actually avoid the situation that your permit expires, you don't know about it, and your car might get towed or you may get a fine. So that's the use case for today. You see that I have just one car here. I can change the permit validity to, let's say, 21st of November, which is tomorrow. You see that the save buttons work. I actually added also the delete buttons, but I don't want to delete that right now. So this is still working the same way as before. I just added this one field. And I also added it to the database, so I had to create a new migration, and that migration I ran it against the Azure database. And when we look in the database, how it looks like, you see that the car is here. It's got the validity till 21st of November, and it's got a zone permit for 114. So these are the changes. What I also did is on the map tab, it looks a bit nicer. So the CSS issues I had the last time, I tried to solve them. It's still not the best looking website. That's probably because I'm not a designer, but the functionality should be there. So you see that when I click on the zone 114, it actually tells me that the car is permitted to park there. If I click on another zone, it shows me that the car does not have the permission to park in that zone. So this is actually not true right now, because the neighbors, the zones that are right next to the one that I have a permit for, that's fine, I can park there, but the system is not yet implemented that way, so it tells me that I don't have a permission to be there. All right, so that's for the news in the project. The most important thing will obviously be the permit validity, which I'll be checking with the Netlify function. So the idea is, let me actually open the best app for drawing. So the idea is that if I have the Blazor here, this is my Blazor app. Oh, that's thin. Let's call this B. And I have a content coming from Candigo content, which is here. Those are the areas, right? I have all the content stored here. This is my Blazor side. Obviously, I could also divide it into a client and a server. And let's call this server, let's call this client. And on the other side, let me switch it to a different color, let's say green. The project actually uses the data from the Azure SQL server. So this would be Azure SQL. Okay, so the data are here. This is the information about my car and about the zone. And right now what I'm aiming to do is to add here a little Netlify function. And that function would go into that same database, let's say once a day. And it would check all the permits. So my permit is valid till sometime next year, but in the database currently it's 21st of November, so that's tomorrow. So that Netlify function would go in, check all the permit validations, or the dates when they expire, and if it finds one that expires soon, it would actually go ahead, create an email here, or any other notification, could be email, could be SMS or whatever else, and would actually send that email to a person who owns the car. So that's the job of the Netlify function that I'll be trying to create today. Right? Hopefully that's clear enough. If it isn't, just send me a message to the chat window. I'll just discard this before anyone sees that. Where I'm going to actually start with Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code is a bit better for Node.js, and because I'm aiming to do a Netlify function, those are actually written in Node.js, so I'll be using Visual Studio Code, and I already prepared a folder for that. It's just a blank folder, nothing's really there. It's the Netlify folder here. And what I usually like to do when I need to create something from scratch is I just look up a tutorial how to do that. So let me first close this thing, because we don't need Visual Studio anymore for today's session, because we're not going to be doing anything on Blazor. The only thing I need is the data that I currently have in my database, so I don't need Blazor for that. I'll be working in Visual Studio Code, and I actually found a very nice tutorial by Travis Horn showing you how you can build Netlify functions, Lambda functions from scratch. So Netlify Lambda functions, the name is Lambda because it's actually built on top of AVS Lambda functions. But Netlify gives you a really nice wrapper around Lambda functions, so you don't have to worry about configurations, anything else. You just easily deploy whatever you can, or whatever you can implement, whatever you have, either drag and drop or via GitHub. It depends where your code is. So you can easily deploy that to Netlify. But it's in its core, it's based on Lambda functions. Now, first of all, what I needed to do, and I'm gonna actually do it once again right now. You can either clone the GitHub repository, but I actually don't aim to put it to GitHub right now. So what I'm actually trying to do is just to run it locally. This is the folder. So what I usually do is first I init the npm project. This is just to get the package.json file in there. That's important because it contains the scripts that you want to run. And it also contains all the dependencies. So if your project has any kind of dependency, it needs to have the package.json file. If you don't do that, I'll just skip through this. If you don't do that, you can do it later. Or if you don't do it at all, and install a package via Node Package Manager, it's going to create a package-log.json file, which you cannot really change, and that one will contain all the dependencies. Now let me switch back here. So you see that I already have a package.json file created. Now the main file is not going to be index.js, but otherwise this looks quite fine. So that's all for now. Now the next thing I will actually need to do is, if I want to run the Netlify Lambda functions locally, I have to install this package. This actually lets me run all the functions that I create locally on my station. And it's just the one installation command away. Now this is much easier experience than what I had with Azure Functions, because there I had to go through hoops in order to reliably run it locally. So with Netlify it's much easier. You just run this one command and it should work. So let's try to do that. That was Netlify. So this is going to take a second. And we can actually go further here. So it's going to create the node modules, obviously. And what I actually will do right after the installation is finished, I'm going to create here this script. The reason for that script is that for some reason I cannot run Netlify Lambda directly from my station. The author, Travis, actually mentions it in the article as well, that he cannot run that directly as well. I don't know the reason for that, but I will just do what's required from me. So I'll just add it to the package.json. Okay, so the installation was fine. And I'm just gonna copy and paste this into the scripts. So we're looking at the package.json file into scripts. And we want to add a start lambda, Netlify lambda serve, and actually I'll have a different folder than source/lambda. I'm just going to create here a new folder called functions. And in that folder, I'll put all the source codes for my functions. So in my case, it's going to be functions. All right. The last thing that I need to do is actually create the function source. So this is probably the smallest function that you can create. Actually, this one already has a callback, so I'm just going to use that one to save some time. And I'm going to create here a new file, and let's call it file check permits. Okay. So this function doesn't do anything. It just calls back with the status code 200. Okay. And body hello world. So this should be quite simple to test. Let's try if we can do that. I'll actually open a command window right here in Visual Studio Code, so I don't have to click through PowerShell and here again. So I'm just gonna stay here. and the command that I created was start colon lambda. So I'm just going to use that. So npm run start lambda. That should be quite quick. We're actually missing a Netlify.toml file. So that's another thing that that Travis mentions here in this article. Let me find it. Oh, here it is. So I need to create a netlify.toml file that actually contains the configuration of Netlify. So I'm just going to copy these two lines and put it into the root. Okay, I did not copy that. So this should be fine. Now I'll try to run it again. Okay, the Lambda server is listening on port 9000, so I should be able to run localhost 9000. And the name of the function was check permits. I'm just going to go with check permits. Okay, and I see hello world. So this is actually what I expected. So the Netlify function is actually working quite well right now. But obviously it doesn't have any functionality yet. So let's check that. So what I always like to do when I start working on functions or on any piece of functionality, I just put here comments of what I'll need to do. So first of all, I'll need to connect to MS SQL database and get cars with expired permits. Well, let's say that almost expired permits. When we actually have all the cars with expired permits, what we're going to need to do is create a notification and send it. And then we need to return OK. Result. Maybe some kind of information like how many notifications were actually sent, but that's for later. So these are the steps that I actually need. From these steps, I know that I'll probably need some module to connect to the SQL database. I'm going to need another module to send the notification. So this is going to be a simple email, and that's pretty much all that I'll need here. And because I'm going to be using services from third parties, what I will first create is .env file, well, not in the functions, in the root of the project. I'll create an .env file, and this file will actually contain keys for connecting to external services. So it's going to be MS SQL connection string. And it's probably going to be SendGrid API key because I'm going to be using SendGrid for sending emails. The Netlify functions, they cannot really send emails on their own, but you have to specify which third-party service is going to send the email, or if you have a mail server somewhere on Azure or AWS, then you're probably going to have to specify the SMTP server and its credentials. So in my case, I'm going to be sending emails through SendGrid. The reason for that is that I already have an account with SendGrid from the past, so it's easy for me to just copy the API key and work with that. So just so you know that there is an environmental file that contains these things, and it doesn't just work like that. You need to install a package that is called, I think it's .env. Let me check. So it's called .env, and what it actually does when you install it, let me just start the installation. So .env, and I want to save that as a dependency. Now, once this is installed, the way how it works is that in the function here, I'll require the plugin, and I call configure, or config, not sure right now. I'll know when it's installed. So this actually ensures that whatever keys you have in the .env file will be then accessible via process.env. So these are the environmental variables. So this will be available to you once you actually call the configure. I think it's configure. Let me check. Oh, might be just config. Yeah, it seems it's just config, so my mistake. Okay, so that's the first thing I usually do with Node.js. And the next thing is then to connect to MS SQL database. So let's check on npm. And there is actually a Microsoft SQL Server client for Node.js. So that's exactly what I'm looking for. So let's install that one. Oops. I can set the dependency, and usually with the Node packages, there are instructions for installation and quick examples. So that's exactly what I'm looking for, this part. So I'll just copy that into my project. And note that there is actually an async method, so I'll probably need to make my function async, because right now it's synchronous. So I'm just copying that in here, and I'll try to find lambda function async. I was already looking for that one in the past. So you see that it should be sufficient to just put here an async in front of the function. Where is it? Yeah. Okay. Let's try to do that. We'll see if that compiles. And what I will need to do, so I'll need to keep the SQL constant here. I'm just going to copy this thing under connect to MS SQL. So first of all, we're going to need to connect to SQL. And this is the connection string, so I'm just going to use the process.env. And how did I call it? MS SQL connection string. So this should actually connect me to the SQL server. And once I'm connected, I actually want to run the SQL query that should be something like select everything from cars, where permit validity, I think I called it permit validity. Yeah. Permit validity is smaller or equal, or actually greater or equal, or smaller. It's going to be smaller because I'm going to take the date that is today and added 7 days to it. So with this call, I should get all the permits that will be expired between now and a week from now. So the permit validity in the database should be less or equal the value that I'm going to put here. And in order to do that, I'm probably going to need a date. And you could do a date now and add 7 days to it. What I usually do when I need to work with dates in JavaScript, I just install Moment.js because otherwise it's a nightmare to work with dates. So I'm just going to install another package and save it for handling the dates. So it should take just a second. And let's check the movement.js documentation. So in the documentation, I'm just looking to get the date 7 days in the future. So that's probably going to be get. Or this one. It's actually going to be this one, add. Okay, this is what I'm looking for. Moment and add 7 days. So I'm trying to look a week in the future, so that's what I need. And for the SQL, I also need to put it in a nice format so that I can check it against the database, right? So I'm looking for something like 2019 11/27, and this should work with SQL. Let's check it in the Management Studio. Okay. Am I using the right database? I should be using the right database. What's wrong here? I don't know what's wrong here. Oh, did I forget from? Yeah, I forgot from. So obviously select everything from cars. Okay, so this query works. And you see that it gives me back the right row. If I did here, if I put here today's date, that should give me empty result. So that's okay. So I'm just going to update the query, select everything from cars with permittivity less than next week. And instead of that, I'm going to put here the date variable. Now in the format, I need to specify in which format I want the date. So that will be display. And I'm looking for the full year, which is 4 Ys. Then it's going to be full month. So this 2 capital M's, and day is 2 capital D's. Okay. So this actually gives me a date a week in the future in this format. So that's fine. And this should give me the results. Now let's take a look at how those results look like. In case there is going to be an error, I'm just going to log it. Okay, let's try that. Let's try to run it. And we'll see. Oh, sorry for that. One thing that I forgot to do is put here the right environmental variables. Now I'm just going to take that window off the screen for a second so that I can put there the right environmental values without you actually seeing those, because I would have to change all my app keys then. So let me find the right ones. Okay. Okay, I'm there. Now I just have to focus on not displaying that file anymore. But I have the values there, so we should be able to connect to SQL. We should be able to get the right results. So let's see. So I'll just close this for now. I can close these two. And once actually the server is available, I can try it in the browser. Okay, so then the server is listening on port 9000. So let's try it. Okay. So I have a few issues here. The moment is not defined. Okay, that's my mistake because I forgot to put here the definition of moment. And let's remove this thing as well. And I think that if we're running asyncly, we can just return the body instead of the callback. So let's see if this is going to work. But this is usually a bit faster, but because I'm running the Streamlabs for streaming on Twitch, it's a bit slower. So bear with me. It's probably because of the MS SQL module that takes quite some time to initialize. So in the meantime, one thing that's good to know about Netlify Functions that you can actually find in their docs is that by default they are deployed in the US East region. They get 1 gig of memory and they cannot be executed for longer than 10 seconds. Now this is a bit of a problem if you're running on a lower tiers in Azure and you have SQL database based or SQL database pricing based on its usage, because sometimes if you're not using the database for a long time, it goes to sleep and it takes a bit longer to wake the database up. So this limit could be a problem in those cases. Just so you know. Okay, the server is now running. Let's switch back here and run it. And you see we got an object here. So the record set contains the card that actually has the permit validity for tomorrow. So right now we actually finished this step. So we connected to MS SQL and got the cars with expired permits. Now what we need to do is to create a notification and then send it to the email address of the owner. So I have the results here, so I'm going to do that here. So I'm just going to check if the result is not null. The result record set is not null. So that's this part, the record set. I should check that the record set is array and that the record set is not empty. If that all is true, I can start iterating over the record sets. So at that point, I'll just take the record set and do a simple for each for every record and put here what I actually need to do. So here I'm just going to be creating the notification. So let's for now put here console log and say that car, let's put here backticks so that I can work with variables. So the car license plate has a permit that will soon expire. That's going to be the permit validity. And of course this is going to print this whole string, right? So it's not really user-friendly. So what I'll do here is put here validity will be moment, the record permit validity. So in that case, I can use validity format and put it into a much nicer format. think I closed that already, so let me bring it up again. So we're looking for display, and we want something like, oh, let's see if there's actually something nicer here. Yeah, this looks quite nice, or this one. So I'm going to use the capital Ls. So we're going to display the date in that format, and that's all we need to do here. Okay, we can remove this console log and return OK. So let's try again, and let's see if that notification actually looks good. And while we're waiting, I'm actually gonna go into npm and check for a SendGrid module, because that's the last part. Yeah, you need to take that notification and send it via SendGrid. So I think that they have a model for Node.js. So the SendGrid /mail. Let's check that. Right, so we're going to need an API key, but I already have that one. I already have it in the environmental file. Yeah, so this is just the environmental file. And the quick start will be this part. So I'm just going to copy and paste it into my app. The thing is, I need to define the SendGrid helper and set the API key, and then I'm going to be able to send mail messages. So let's take a look here. So the server is finally started. Let's try to refresh this page and see what we get here. So you see that there is a message, the car and the license plate has a permit that will soon expire. So it's going to expire tomorrow. So this is doing whatever I told it to do, so that's exactly what I want, to get a notification for that car. And actually, if I run this function every day, it's going to send me the notification every day until I actually go in the system and change the validity of that permit. Which is nice, in case I just forget about one email, I get another one the next day. So that's what I want. And the last thing I need to do is actually put here the SendGrid module and send that message. So I'm just going to put this constant here and call it SendGrid. And of course I need to install it as well. So let me check if we have the installation here. Okay. So no npm install SendGrid /mail. Okay. So this should install the module, and while we install the module, I can take a look here. So setting the API keys, I probably don't want to do that for every record. So I'm just gonna put this one somewhere at the top. And you see that SendGrid API key, that's exactly how my key is called. And once that is, okay, I need to change this one as well to SendGrid. And once that is configured, I just need to define how the message is going to look like. So at this point, I don't know which car is has which owner, because right now I'm just using one simple account, so I'm just going to send it to my email address. And from no reply at the domain of the project. Subject is going to be car, or let's just put here record license plate, permit expires soon. So the license plate and then the permit expires soon is going to be in the subject. I'm not going to need an HTML for this one because it's going to be a simple notification. And I'm just going to put here whatever I output into console log before. Okay, so we're creating a notification and sending it. So here should be send, curate the send message, and this should successfully send the email. What I usually like to do as well is put here a counter to see how many notifications were actually sent. So whenever I do this, I'm just going to put here counter ++, and in the end, I'm just returning OK, and put here the number of notifications. Okay, that looks good. So let's try to run it. So you see it's quite easy to find modules for Node.js for pretty much any kind of service that you want to use, which makes it really easy. In case of Azure Functions, this was also very easy because SendGrid also has a module that you can just register as a trigger, and the only thing you need to define is in the configuration what is the sender's address, what is the recipient's address, and it was equally easy to just define everything and send. So in that perspective, it doesn't really matter which service you're gonna use. In terms of Azure Functions, it's nice that you can use C#, but I was using JavaScript anyway because I just wanted to try it. But if you're a fan of C#, Azure Functions are definitely a great way to start with serverless functions. The thing that I experienced though was that Azure Functions took quite long for coming up as a cold start. Yeah, so if you didn't use those functions for a long time, it took quite a long time to actually bring them up and run them. With Netlify and Netlify Lambda functions, this is quite instant. So from that perspective, Netlify functions have I have a better experience with them. So let's try to run it. You see that the response is okay and one notification was sent. So that's actually what I expected, because that thing will compose the message and send it. Now let me try to do one more thing, and I'll just try to run the project again. I'll try to switch the permit validity to see if the SQL query is actually working well. So it's going to take a second to get that email because it goes through various queues. I'll try to open my email box again on a different screen. This is my personal email. And that should take a second. Okay, I'm just going to try to run the Blazor site once again and actually update the permit validity. What is actually also a nice feature of SendGrid is, let me reset this, that if you look at the console in SendGrid, it shows you all the messages that are coming from your app and show you to which email addresses they were sent. So it's a really nice debugging UI. But let me go back here and I'm just gonna wait for the cars to appear here. Again, this is still loading all the areas with thousands of GPS coordinates, so this is still taking a long time. I still haven't found time to optimize this, but I'm gonna, hopefully, till the end of the year. So let me switch the permit validity to, let's say, December 31st, and save it. Okay, so that's saved. Let's check. There's nothing here, but in the database we should have it as updated. Okay. Now when I run the Netlify function again, I should get 0 notifications sent, because right now the permit is valid for over a month. So the result is okay, but there were no notifications sent. So it seems like the Netlify function is working well. Let's see if I already got the email. And there it is. So you see, it came from the address that I specified. The subject is that the license plate permit expires soon, and this is the message. Okay, so the emails are working well. That's good to see. And the last part is actually how to deploy to Netlify. Now, I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to show you that because I'm having issues with actually Netlify. To actually sign into Netlify. Yeah, so it takes me to the support page, actually not telling me what's wrong, so not a great user experience by Netlify. But before, it actually shows you the dashboard where you can either drag and drop the whole folder. So if you look at the folder as I have it now, you just take the whole thing and put it to the dashboard of Netlify, or you can actually put it to GitHub and then deploy the whole site from GitHub to Netlify. It's just a matter of seconds, and you have it deployed, you have it online. The last thing that I wanted to show you is that in terms of Netlify functions, there is a bit of a problem with the triggers. Let me find it here. So you can trigger the Netlify functions based on multiple events. But what I actually needed to do is have it triggered per day, so on a daily basis. And I haven't found yet a way how to do that. If you know about how to do that, let me know. But I haven't found it here. So I assume that the function always needs to be triggered by an external event apart from these listed ones. So it either needs to be a webhook or something. So for my scenario, I found an online cron service where you could just create a cron job, define the endpoint of your function, and say that it should run every day at 8 o'clock in the morning, for example. So this would actually hit the endpoint of my function, and the function would run every day like it should, and sending emails with notifications. So you see, building a Netlify function is quite easy. The experience is quite nice. You get the local module. It all runs as you would expect. The debugging is also quite easy. So a very nice way how to do that. The cold starts are very quick from what I experienced. So yeah, a very nice way how to actually perform some kind of dynamic functionality, either on a daily basis or based on events. So that's all from me today. I hope you had fun. If you want me to share this function in source code, just let me know on Twitter. The handle is Underbus, the same as here on Twitch. And I'll be looking forward to seeing you next time. I'll see if I can do some kind of hardware for next time. We should be looking at IoT and GPS trackers actually triggering serverless functions just like this one. So thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye.